The Nintendo Switch 2 Direct just happened, and aside from some egregious audiovisual problems with the live premiere, it was a perfectly adequate showing. I've seen some people come away from this Direct over the moon, believing this to be one of the best Directs of all time. I've also seen some people come away underwhelmed, like, that's it? That's the big premiere Direct for your new console? As for me, personally, I'm somewhere in the middle, so for the fanatical Nintendo sycophants, I might as well have just said I hated it, and to unrelenting Nintendo haters, well, they don't care. They seldom get mad at people for having nuanced perspectives. Really, it's a whole thing, but that's a can of worms for another day. When I say I'm in the middle, I mean I didn't think it was a bad showing. In fact, I'm quite excited by many of these announcements. GameCube games on NSO is exciting, Mario Kart World looks incredible, DK Bonanza looks miraculously good. Hell, I'm even curious to see more of Welcome Tour and Drag X Drive. But on the other hand, this presentation was an hour long, and we spent a lot of time getting extended looks at bog-standard multiplats, and painfully extensive footage of cringy cattle call actors pretending voice chat is the most innovative, novel idea ever. If you watch my live reaction, you'll see that I got plenty excited for the good stuff, but was overwhelmingly underwhelmed by the not as good stuff. And part of the reason why is definitely because the Switch 1's January 2017 presentation was so legendary. Its constant flow of new first-party game announcements and good news shared about the Switch system itself made that whole event fun and hype-worthy from start to end. This Switch 2 Direct, on the other hand, it pretty much followed the modern Direct formula of swapping between shilling out for multiplats and actual substantive Nintendo-focused announcements, and each for longer than anyone would need them to go on for. The pacing was not good, and the reveals of stuff like Mario Kart World, Drag X Drive, Age of Imprisonment, and DK Bonanza were nowhere near as mind-blowing as Splatoon 2, ARMS, Fire Emblem Warriors, or Mario Odyssey were at the time. And in some ways, that's because going from Wii U to Switch was like watching Nintendo pick themselves up out of a dismal rut and into the breakthrough they needed to win everyone's favor. But now, the transition from Switch 1 to Switch 2 is feeling a lot more like the beginnings of a post-Iwata Nintendo corruption arc. This feeling is only furthered by the news that followed shortly after the Direct's conclusion, namely, the pricing. The Switch 2 will retail for $450 and the limited time Mario Kart World Bundle, $500. And you know, maybe you're okay with that. After all, these hardware specs are no slouch. And that bundle is actually a pretty good deal considering Mario Kart alone retails for 80 bucks. 80 bucks? 80 $80? I've seen some people try to lay the blame for this decision on new tariffs on imported goods in the United States, but they do not actually seem to apply in this case, further evidenced by the proportional pricing in other regions, including Japan. Which, side note, includes a region-locked variant for Japan that retails for cheaper, almost as if Nintendo is deliberately trying to negate the possibility that people from other regions will simply import a Japanese Switch. Makes you think, doesn't it? Nah, so far as I can tell, Nintendo's hands are not economically tied. They're just pulling a stunt, and heaven help us, it might just work out for them. I fully expected them to embrace the $70 retail pricing for games to which the rest of the industry has slowly been trying to acclimate us, and from what we can tell, yeah, they are in fact doing that. But 80 for Mario Kart? Now you're just being cocky, Nintendo. I mean, this is a big Mario Kart game. It looks like it could potentially be the biggest, most ambitious, most feature-heavy Mario Kart game, nay, Nintendo game of all time, maybe, I don't know. But that should be reflective of the justification for moving on to the $70 standard in the first place. An $80 pricing just reads as Nintendo getting high off their own fumes. I seriously doubt customers and families accustomed to paying $60 or less for games are gonna be okay with paying $80, especially when all the other games on the shelf are cheaper. Wait, what's that? Oh, the Switch 2 editions of certain Switch 1 games will potentially retail for $80 too? Huh. 80 smackaroos for Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Bowser's Peeverance? Great. Cool. Yeah, worth it, totally. And that's not even the worst of Nintendo's superfluous pricing, folks. Switch 2 Welcome Tour, this cute little download-only title where you can familiarize yourself with the console's features, Nintendo is charging money for that. Not much money by the looks of it, but still. People thought paying for 1-2 Switch was outrageous, but Welcome Tour is quite literally positioning itself as an entry point experience for the hardware. Imagine paying out the nose for a trip to Disneyland. Just imagine, right? And then when you get there, you ask someone at the front gate for a map, and they say, okay, that'll be $5. And I'm sure you'd say, hey, fella, I paid out the nose to get in here. You can't charge an extra fee just so I know where the hell I'm going. And and some people might come to you and say, hey, you can always Google or outsource directions. It's not like that's the only map. Or compared to everything else on sale at Disneyland, $5 is a steal. I mean, that's really cheap. For Disneyland, that's cheap. But the principle of the matter, nay, the fact of the matter is that it is diabolical to charge for a guide at all. Wii Sports was free. Nintendo Land was free. AR games and the stack of cards required to play it were free. Astrobot on PS5 is free. This game, tailor-made to be a short, breezy feature showcase, should not just be free, but ready to play on your console the minute it's been set up. Shifting away from how dirty this pricing feels and how horrible of an impact it's having on people's perception of Switch 2 in general, I'd like now to say I am extremely wary of Nintendo's newly announced Switch 2 editions for select Switch 2 titles. By the looks of things, it looks like some games will have performance boosts that NSO users get for free, including a resolution and frame rate boost for ARMS. Ooh baby, ooh baby, ooh baby. But other more substantial additions for Switch 2 edition games were advertised as being available for purchase for existing owners of the Switch 1 editions. It is currently unconfirmed how much that for purchase is at time of writing, but based on yen listings and conversion estimates, it seems like these upgrades will cost between $10 and $20. Again, that is a total jip. I've got a Switch. I've got a Switch game. Nintendo says, hey, buy a Switch 2. I say, no thanks, I bought a Switch 1. It's got my favorite game, I bought it and I own it forever. Then Nintendo says Switch 2 can play that game, and I says so can Switch 1, but then Nintendo says Switch 2 can play it in 4K at 120 FPS, and I says, okay, how much for Switch 2? And they says big price plus the fee you need to pay the game you already have with the improved features. And I says, that's what I'm buying the console for, you schmo. How did we let the game industry do this? How did we let them charge for online? How did we let them charge for performance boosts? Are we really about to let them charge surplus prices just because they think they'll get away with it? Look, on some level, I can accept $70 being the new standard. I don't like it, but I also don't like how much gas and groceries cost now either. Economic inflation got real bad these past couple of years in my country. Paying for a $70 game is like paying for 2 full tanks of gas for my car. Though then again, only a couple of years ago, I could only get just 1 full tank of gas with $70, so at least we're coming out the other side of a pretty bad recession, but I digress. Charging $80 for a game is just crass. It's like a couple of years ago, Nintendo said to us, Tears of the Kingdom has to be $10 more than our standard games because it's just so big and prestigious. And all of you listening who bought that game responded with, fair, and forked it over. And now, Nintendo's like, Mario Kart World has to be $10 more than our standard games too. Except our new standard is the same as the surplus we put on Tears of the Kingdom 2 years ago, so now $10 more is really more like $20 more. But it's totally worth it, right? And friends, I really don't think so. I mean, imagine if Nintendo's prestige tier pricing was used in any other mass consumer model industry. Imagine if Disney had the gall to demand movie theaters charge more tickets for their Marvel movies than any other movie tickets go on sale for. Bob Iger comes out and says they're just so impactful. They're such huge events. They're so time and resource intensive to make. We have to bleed the customer out a little more to get these made because they're just so freaking special. Of course, you're happy to pay more to get these really special movies, right? Disney would get absolutely raked across the coals if they tried to pull that stunt, and they'd deserve it. And friends, Nintendo deserves a little coal raking right now for trying to pull this stunt. I felt this same way about the Switch OLED and Mario 3D All-Stars prices/distribution, and I feel that same way again now for Switch 2 and its games. You all let Nintendo get away with those stunts. Will you let them get away with this too? I want to play Mario Kart World. I want to play DK Bonanza. I actually want to play Drag X Drive too, if you can believe it. But I barely have time to play games these days. I most certainly do not have the money to buy games and systems at these prices. To circle back round to the Switch 2 Direct itself, I felt mixed on it coming away from it, and it had everything to do with how underhandedly delivered, conveniently detail devoid, and reliant on partners and services the showing was when compared to the Switch 1's tell-all presentation. And as I look for a way to close out this video, I feel I must disclose that I, of course, am still a Nintendo fan generally due to their legacy and the brilliant minds who develop games through them. So of course this channel will continue to stay abreast of the Switch 2 situation, and I will wait with bated breath for an opportunity to attain a Switch 2 of my own and play the games on it. Still and all, I am deeply saddened by this turn of events regarding how the Switch 2 and its games are priced and distributed, to the point where I both philosophically and, more importantly, monetarily, cannot support it day one. Not will not, cannot. But do you want to know the saddest aspect of all, out of all this unpleasantness surrounding the Switch 2 and its games? The game cases look just awful. Ew. Ew. Gross. What the? Ugh. Ah.